good morning, wherever you are. So today we'll have one more power pack session with Christina. So welcome, Christina. You are muted. You're muted.
Okay, I'm back. Hello, good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll start the session today. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, my sound is cutting out a little bit, so please let me know.
Sure, sure.
If it's okay. All right. So there we go. Welcome everybody. Christina here with Life Body Academy, and we are here for week 4 of the Introduction to Multidimensional Liberation series. It's so awesome to complete a series like this. It's been a fun journey so far. I imagine you guys, if you've been doing the practices with the downloads that I've been sharing with you guys, you probably discovered a few new things about yourself and yourself in relationship to the elemental realm and the dimensions and so on. I just want to recap for a moment. Dear sister Depthi, if you can share the link of those handouts that I've been sharing each week with everybody, because I have a new download for everybody for this week, and I'll talk about what that is. Just to recap a little bit, the first week we talked about the 9D ladder and the keepers and their encodements. So what does that mean? There was a handout that you guys had access to download, and it contained a model, something like this. Oops, I don't think I made my axis quite long enough. There we go. And this is what I'm calling the multidimensional ladder, or the 9D ladder. So you had a handout with a graphic like this, with the dimensions labeled and the keepers, and the names of the keepers of each of these realms, and including encodements. And what's significant about that is, these images and these keepers and those encodements have been used by humans for a really long time. So it's really well integrated into the collective. So starting with that as a starting point is really great for us, because we can start resonating with this energy as we learn more, dive deeper into the dimensions. So that was week 1. And then we have week 2, where we talked about the canopy, working with trees, working with connecting with the telluric realm and the significance of that. And then there was, of course, a handout and a meditation for that. And then for week 3, we did an activation to help to activate the lenses that are located in your physical body, but also to help cleanse them and introduce you to the keepers of each of these realms. And that was last week. And then this week, we're going to dive deeper into the practical applications of this work for healers, for way showers, for teachers, for caregivers. Okay, we're going to dive into practical applications of this, as well as altar building. This is the key element, and this isn't according to any particular tradition, but this is a key element to stepping beyond blind spots. Beyond the blind spots contained within our 4D field personally, but also the 4D field of the collective. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And the download for today is a deeper dive into the forgiveness alchemy practice, because I want everybody here to be able to walk away with everything they need to connect more deeply with these elements, but also to liberate yourself, liberate your family, liberate your children and your grandparents, liberate the generations of your family, so that lens that you all work with and engage is as clear as possible. There's no old vendettas influencing this, the higher dimensional information coming to you. There's no old family stories that have no longer have any relevance anymore. Okay, so I really want each of you to have the tools So, and the know-how on how to utilize these pieces so you can start liberating yourself and your family on a very deep level. So the download is Forgiveness Alchemy, which was a PDF in the beginning that you guys had on video. For many people, it's very difficult to go into an deep altered state and read. So the recording video is so you can keep your eyes closed, so you can stay in your altered state and continue with the intent and the focus of working the energy. A little sneak peek into that down here's my marker. Okay, so the practical applications and altar building. So for those of you who have read the book, or books plural, of Alchemy of the Nine Dimensions, there's actually two versions. The one with the cream colored back outside, that's a newer version. The original version was like purple and gold, and it had crop circles on the front of it. And the reason why she came out with the revised version is because, as I was stating in the weeks prior, is that this work is constantly evolving and moving and growing. It's dynamic, and we are discovering more and more and more. So she ended up writing Alchemy, the first version of Alchemy, because she felt like from working with the different groups around the world, but a lot of it was happening in Lilydale, New York. She had enough to go on to actually start to do that research, to accumulate the science that was proving the hypothesis that the nine dimensions exist in the way that they do. And then she continued, even after writing that first version, she continued to work with groups and continued to learn more. And then she recognized that she did not have quite the proper understanding of the fourth dimension. Now, the fourth dimension is lower down in the lattice work, but it's actually the biggest piece for humans to deal with, because we all have ego drivers, and our ego drivers function based on our deeply buried subconscious beliefs and consciously held beliefs, of course, too, but 90% of it is based on subconsciously held beliefs. So this 4D field is the golden key, so to speak, to learn how to work, so you can get past those kinds of limitations and really step into the more vast nature of your being. So the book was mostly about those experiences and the scientific research. What we are doing here is that I have words, of course, but this is mostly energetic transmissions. So a lot of people will start going to an altered state when I'm just saying, hi, how you doing? Right? Because there's these transmissions that are emanating from my field, and with your intent, you're tuning in to this work, into this workshop. And because you have that intent, you're saying yes on a certain level to receive the transmissions that you're ready for. So when it comes to the practical application to this kind of stuff, it really requires going beyond the understanding, and it really means you have to start using your beingness, applying the alchemy of your beingness into your work, into your world. So let me, I'm going to dial in the Canopy, and then we're going to go into some deeper levels of this for that practical application piece. All right, so here we go. Okay, so those, if you've done the downloads, or if you've watched in the previous weeks, you're familiar with this particular graphic. Barbara actually has several versions of this graphic. The original version had this horizontal plane was a person on a healing table with a healer at the head of the table, holding the head, holding the pulses of the one getting work done. I'll just let you sit with why that might be so. This is our Canopy. Let me, So this canopy is polarized. This canopy is full of beliefs, thought forms, held both subconsciously and consciously. It's also the perception of linear time, flying through time like an arrow. And then it has other things in here too, like grid works and stuff like that. We won't get too much into that because that in itself is a whole massive teachings, massive teaching. But just suffice it to say, when I'm talking about grids, this means that it's thought forms and attitudes held in place by interdimensional energies. So when we talk about holding space means holding a canopy that's as empty and as still as possible. So the person that you're holding space for can have their experience with as much clarity and go as deep as possible. Okay. So when that model originally had that healer on the table, or I'm sorry, the healer with a client on the table, and what they were doing was tuning in to the pulses, to the we'll just say cranial sacral pulses, because that's something that's really well known, right? Holding the back of the head. And while they're doing that, they're holding space, right? You have to hold space, and then you tune into the rhythms, and then you start slowing down. As you guys have noticed, probably if you're a healer, you notice how the key to opening a person up to have this certain kind of work done is they need to slow down. They need to get out of the beta frequencies of the linear mind and start relaxing that linear mind so they can go into more of a theta, delta, gamma state. Now, gamma is really deep in altered state, which may not be reached within a healing session, but sometimes it can happen. So the point of slowing down is to change those brain waves and also retune the physical body, mental body, emotional body, these different, the physical and all these subtle bodies, retune them into a sympathetic resonance that actually has a much deeper, exaggerated resonance with the core of the earth. Now, why the core of the earth? Why not the telluric realm? And that's because the core of the earth, the heart and mind of the Pachamama, she has within her all of the templates, all of the encodements for healing, for having a healthy, strong, vibrant physical form and subtle body form within her. She has all those encodements, because remember, we all came here and made an agreement with the earth to unfold ourselves within her dream, unfold ourselves within her realm. The Kero call Mother Earth, Gaia, Pachamama, which quite literally means realm of the mother. Okay, this is their name. And this is why I use it, because it's such an endearing, it feels such like an endearing quality for me every time I refer to the earth. I mean, when I say the earth, there's that kind of feeling, but when I say Pachamama, there's so much, it's so much richer within me. It's fine. I just make sure that I'm staying in that frequency so I can have this exaggerated within my being, because it's luscious, it's yummy. It reminds me that I'm meant to be here. It reminds me that there's a reason why I'm here, not just to wake up in the morning and take care of my kids. It's like, wake up, on a spirit mystical level, there's a reason why I'm walking around in this biosuit on this planet. And by reconnecting my affections with the earth, it reminds me every day, it reminds me every moment. So the slowing down of the client on the table allows resonance for the core of the earth. And within the core of the earth are those encodements. Now, it's not because there are reasons why disease exists. And that could be past trauma, that could, there's life, right, that happens that maybe builds things within us and it starts turning into disease. But what it can do is bring those encodements and start pushing, opening that the aperture, so to speak, for your system to accept and have that internal realization of exactly what needs to change in your life, in your world, to allow these encodements to unfold within you. And encodements are a beautiful, graceful piece offered to us by these interdimensional realms, because when you take an encodement in, if you're ready for it to get planted and for it to grow through your field, that's great. But a lot of us are still are in some kind of level of our healing journey. So maybe the soils of our being isn't quite tilled enough to grow such a encodement. So what will happen is that as we take in an encodement, it will actually act as healing. It'll heal some aspect within us. Okay, actually brings. This is why transmissions from masters, really have potency no matter where you are in your spectrums, because they are transmitting digested light, wisdom, but in a form of light, in the form, not in a canopy form. We're transmitting things like from up here, digested, and we're a clear conduit. So these encodements heal first as they need to. So you can keep receiving the same encodement over and over and over again. So if you're in a healing session with a healer, you can be getting uploads from the Pachamama. Well, some people might call it downloads from the Pachamama over and over and over again, several times within the hour, or maybe spread out through many, many sessions. Okay. So when it comes to being a healer, working with this model, it's very, very empowering. And it's actually very liberating too, because you recognize the wisdom behind some of the techniques, and also start to realize that these techniques are like guidelines. There's lots and lots of room for creativity, for spontaneous embellishments, so to speak. I know that kind of goes against some teachings, doesn't it? This time of transition. And I don't mean ego driver master. Many beings that I've worked with throughout my life have shown me that a true master looks less like a warrior and more like an artist and a poet. Okay. So creative license is part of the art form. Being able to allow your spirit to move, plenty of space to move within you, and with all of these realms of who you are to facilitate something for somebody, that's the art form right there. That's you bringing the wisdom of your spirit into the session. And there's no breaking the rules. The only thing that you need to be absolutely on top of is your intent. What is your intent? The intent needs to be clear, and it needs to be sincere. It can't be just lip service. It needs to be a true heartfelt intent on you as a healer, but also the person coming in for the work. Okay. So, So there are some forms of healing where you simply just connect with the person that's in the room with you, and you just go into an altered state, and then all this beautiful magic starts happening, and you are witnessing the magic. You're not actually doing anything, and your client is also happens to just be witnessing as well. That's understanding helps the ego driver back off, right? And just let surrender into what the flow is going to be. This is charged up and open and free, a vessel for. Now, if you have a lot of belief systems, what can flow through you, because somewhere inside you're qualifying good, bad, right or wrong, negative, positive.
Hi, Christina.
Positive, good, evil, male, female, blah, 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 blah. Just surrender to the flow of what's happening within both are. When you surrender and just allow, you can actually work a lot. You can see many, many, many people in a day, versus if, if you, who you think you are is involved, you're going to get tired real fast, because the ego driver cannot keep up with spirit. The ego driver can handle so much, and this is partially why sensitive people have time being around certain groups a lot. We get tired, and it's because our ego driver in action takes a lot of energy. Unless you have you've cultivated a community around you where you don't need to. You can be your natural state, and you're not trying to fit in or filter or anything like this. All right. So when it comes to the healer practical application, you can also decide where when you're working with your person and you're tuning in, so to speak, right? And that's with your intent and your openness and your sincere holding space. You may notice that there's certain things that are coming through for your client that maybe they themselves have a belief or have some kind of block against. And you'll notice, because it'll either be difficult for you to put it into words, or you'll just have this knowing of, okay, there's some angelic forms, like the angelic form of this person is trying to come through, but because of belief systems, it's not coming through. You might just know that when you touch them, right? So this will give you a different language. There's a lot of people, especially in the West, that have a very maybe not a positive relationship with certain religions, and they would associate angelic forms with religions. Therefore, there's going to be a level of rejection. By you being open and receiving these frequencies with clarity, because of your own personal work that you've done within yourself, you can help them. You can help liberate them from the blocks from embracing that aspect of who they are. There are many angelic humans walking on this planet right now, but we have to do our personal work to actually step into that as being a truth within our being, right? So you can really help facilitate this way, just because of your own clarity. The download comes to you, you've already digested those levels, so now you can bring forward a different way, a different perspective to those energies, so this person can now accept it in a different way. Like, they can step out of those beliefs that was in the way and accept it as it truly is. The word angel doesn't belong to any particular religion, even though there's a lot of beliefs around that. The angelics are, they're part of the universe. They're part of the cosmic realms, so there's no one, anybody has license on that. Nobody has monopoly on those sorts of things. Nobody has a monopoly on the energies of the Mother of God, the perceptions of the Milky Way, or what some people would recognize as the Kuan Yin, right? The white Tara, that things, religions and different mystery schools and spiritual practices have teachings about it, but no one sect can own it, because it's a truth that is for everybody within the Milky Way galaxy. It's a truth for everybody. Okay. So, and if you find that in your own healing practice that you have beliefs, you have some wording where there's a lot of belief or dogma involved, working with these kinds of models will help you flush those out, because those dogma pieces are limitations. They're just limitations that obstruct the flow and keep us from being that hollow vessel. Now, we know that, let me take a sip of my tea real quick. Now, we know that these times are really intense. There's a lot going on in these times, and there's a lot of polarity. There's a lot of conflict and divide going on. So as a way shower, many of you may feel like you were born for these times, and you're here for a purpose, and you're in the process of discovering what that purpose is. What exactly are you way showing, right? So as a way shower, there's lots of practical applications to this, because you can recognize the narratives that create division, and you can recognize different mechanisms that are triggering people on a different level. You can completely transcend the actual narrative and see it in a place that's from a more liberated perspective. when you are a way shower, that's something that comes very naturally to you, but this will just help cultivate and enhance that. Oh, hold on, I have some comments here. I want to make sure that's not about the sound. Okay. Okay, thank you. All right. So way showers are coming to this planet en masse. There's some that, of our generation, like people born in the 60s and 70s, we've been here for a while. And of course, there's some that come before that, absolutely. But I mean, en masse, we've been coming more and more and more. Our younger generations, there were huge, right? There's in the beginning, I remember like 15 years ago, I was having a conversation with my bigger S self, and a council started coming in to chime in with some of these pieces. And they were saying that at that time, about 20% of the population had the capability of waking up to the multidimensional nature. 20% of the population of the globe had the potential to wake up to the multidimensional nature, and that it was likely that 20% of them would actually wake up. And then I rechecked in that conversation just a couple of years ago, and they're saying 80% of the population coming to this planet, like these younger generations, 80% have the potential to wake up to their multidimensional nature, and more than half of those are going to wake up. So I was like, yay! Right? And so as way showers, to me, that means that, remember, Pachamama endows us with everything that we need to walk our path, which means the way showers in mass that are required to help facilitate that many to wake up are here and are empowered in a place of doing what it is that they're here to do. Okay. So this is a very high calling for a way shower. And it doesn't necessarily mean public speaking, though it could include that from here and there. It's more about you stepping into your authentic nature, referencing the truth compass that is within you and taking action upon that, living that value system. And while you live that value system, your children will benefit, your partner is going to benefit, everybody in your family that's connected to you can benefit. But most of all, those young ones will benefit because they will be primed to not to get locked up in a lot of these divisive dogmas and narratives that we have going on. And they have that permission to walk with a more liberated mind. And they're going to be more poised to cultivate a more flexible mind, which means those bold and courageous creatives have that space, have that encouragement to come forward and do what it is that they're here to do. So many of us are way showers. This other aspect is about that creativity, right? So when we're in our creativity, a lot of people, especially as you get older, start to lose their creativity. It's pretty funny. My partner and I, my husband and I have been together for a long time. And there was a point in time where I really wanted to paint. My youngest daughter and I were painting, and we were taking lessons, art lessons and stuff like this. And there's something here in the States called, they call it lots of things, but it's pretty much like where you get together and everybody does the same painting, and maybe you have some wine. Something paint and sip. That's what they would call it, paint and sip. So it was really quite interesting because those many years ago, my husband and I would do that, and I'm just, they would just give me the idea of the painting, and I would just start going off on how I think to make it, right? And for those that didn't feel comfortable doing that, they would give a very specific step-by-step process, like take this tool and take this paintbrush and use this color and do this with it, And so he would want to wait for the instructions to be told how to do it. And I would always make fun of him. It's like, why do you need instructions for your creativity? It's like you don't listen to rules in any other part of your life, but here you do, But this is true for a lot of adults. How it is that we've cultivated an ego driver that has a priority system, which means get it right, usually tells us to get it right, to know what you're doing, and make sure that it's good, or something that you could be proud of, something like this. And that those principles in our ego driver quite literally are the kiss of death to our creativity, because our creativity needs freedom to do and mistake and do again, right? Our creativity you have to get it out before you can start editing it. But most people can't get out of the editor in order to let them to have that reckless abandonment. So imagine in your life, if you were encouraged by somebody in your world to keep that reckless abandon alive, keep that part of your creativity alive and don't edit it. First get it out, then start editing it, right? So as far as us being way showers and space holders to help nurture this creativity, this is a really potent piece for all of us. These times that we're in, and I was talking about the kind of got on the soapbox a little bit yesterday, these times that we're in is for us to get out of it, it's going to require the highest aspects of our humanity to come forward. Okay. We need those bold and outrageous creatives. We need those that are, willing to break every rule in the book because the bar has been getting raised more and more and more. Our politics is not keeping up with the requirements of what it is to have a thriving world. Right now, politics is just getting on board with the idea of global warming and climate change. And really, it's like the bar is much higher than that these days. It's not about sustainable living, it's about regenerative living. And this is huge because as a multidimensional, regeneration is not a problem. We know that grace and beauty exists on a very deep level. We're not going to, there's no belief system that's going to shut that down within us, right? So we have to first know that it's possible before we can, go and do what it is that we need to do, which according to the collective narrative is to do the impossible, right? There's a beautiful story that a teacher told me long time ago about his times when he stayed in the villages of Quero. Quero is a collection of 13 villages, very, very high up in the Andes Mountains between Bolivia and Peru. Very, very harsh conditions up there. And they were having a council meeting. And there was a very significant problem that the villages were having. And that's why they convened to have a meeting because they wanted to figure out a solution for the problem. And there were two very young ones that were, I think they were like teenagers, like 15 and 18, something like this, among a council of older ones, of elders. And the head council person decided to put these two teenagers in charge of solving this impossible, unsolvable problem. What? Right? And afterwards, my teacher asked him, why are you sure about that decision? Why would you have these young ones take charge of this issue that no one has ever been able to solve, that is unsolvable? And it's so emotional. So, and his response is because they don't know that it's impossible. That's why he put them in charge. You understand? So this is the level of creativity that we need to allow to come forward out of our humanity. This is the level to do the impossible. So we cannot externally reference to do that. We have to use our internal compass to resource and find the way to make it happen. So, and the other piece that we really need is authentic leadership, right? I imagine what an authentic leader could do in these times right now. On that same note of with Bolivia, there was a time when one of the Quero tribes was voted president. I think Morales was his name. This is many years ago, I think during Bush Sr., when Bush Sr. was president here. And he fulfilled, once he was, let me know if I'm cutting out. I just got a message that was unstable connection. When he became president.
Now it is fine, Christina.
Are we back? Okay, thank you. When he became president, he fulfilled all of his campaign promises within 6 months of his presidency. Okay, right? It's because he truly wanted that to happen. He truly meant every single promise. And this is a gentleman that did not get past the 3rd grade in his education. So it wasn't because he was so masterfully educated. Really, it was because he didn't know. He didn't know he wasn't supposed to do that, because boy, did that make all the other rulers and leaders look ridiculous, right? And how many leaders have we had make all these promises and never follow through? It's because it's just lip service. They don't actually mean it from their deep authenticity, right? They want to blame this opposition, that opposition, la, 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 but that's not the truth. The fact is, when you are a master creator like this, you can absolutely do everything that you set out and intend to do. So authentic leadership is a huge, huge calling right now for humanity as well. We need to step up and work from the truth of who we are, not the programs that we're told we need to run in order to be successful or whatever. By us doing exactly what it is that our hearts tell us we need to do is exactly what we need to be doing. And yes, it's not that you set out to be a leader, you end up getting called to it because of your authenticity, because of your resolve, because of your integrity. Okay, these are the waves that are coming through our collective right now. And all the shenanigans going on has a lot of people very, very heavy in their pain and in suffering and in fear. And it's all a distraction to the truth of where we need to be arising within ourselves. Okay. All right. Another department where this is really, really helpful is with caregivers. Because caregivers, whether it's our elderly, it's our dying, or if it's our children and educating our young ones, caregivers have a lot of power to influence those who they are caring for. So if it's for the elderly, you can open up avenues within that person by the space you hold, by the quality of water you give them, by the quality of care you give them, the levels of which you're aware of them. Because quite literally, humans need more than just food and water to live, right? You need connection, you need kindness, right? You need a lot more than just food and water. And unfortunately, especially here in the West, the systems are, as long as they're fed and they're kept clean, they're fine. It's like, no. What a way, that's why a lot of our elderly are really in a suffering state before they pass, which does everybody a disservice. And not just that person, but all of your lineage pays the price for that kind of suffering and I wouldn't say disrespect of passing, right? So as caregivers working in these levels, if you just activate certain aspects of yourself and accentuate and go into the scene where you're doing your caregiving, you're going to start alchemizing these energies. You're going to start dissolving old traumas, old holdbacks, and quite literally help them let go. Help them, if they're in the process of dying, help them let go. And if they're in a process of grieving and mourning because they're in a place they don't want to be and they're not seeing family or feeling isolated, you can help them process that as well without words. It's purely with energy. You can recognize that they need a creative outlet. You can recognize how therapeutic singing can be for them, how therapeutic music is. I had a dear friend that used to bring her horse into the nursing homes, and boy, that was like a big day, right? Because that was her passion. So, when you are a caregiver with these levels of awareness, you recognize these other more subtle needs. And it doesn't take a lot. It just takes time and care, just for a few minutes, and you massively impacted that person's day. Okay. And the other aspect is as being death doulas. This is a really, really big piece for humanity, because humanity has, well, depending on where you live and how your cultures are, right? There's some cultures that have never disconnected from the dying process and the dead. And unfortunately, a lot of those are cultures that have experienced sustained suffering and trauma and war, right? So it's unfortunate it needs to be under such intensity. But most of the Western cultures are pretty separated from the dying process. But there are more and more young ones, especially that I'm coming across, are being called to doing something that we call being a death doula. So we have birth doulas in the West, and birth doulas help mom prepare for birth. Some of them actually do the midwifing process, and then they assist mom afterwards with with aftercare. Maybe it's Ayurvedic treatments or massages.
Christina, we can't hear you. Christina?
Reconnect us all with
Christina?
what it is. Yes.
You are cut down.
Hello?
You have cut down in between.
I beg your pardon?
You have cut down in between. You have cut down in between.
I'm still not understanding.
In between, you had cut down.
I think your internet is not good. You're breaking up in between.
I'm breaking up. Okay. Let's see if I can switch my. Oh, yes. Let me switch my Wi-Fi and see if that changes anything.
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, and my Wi-Fi is not popping up. Okay, hold on a second. Let me grab I have one more thing. Okay, I have a hot spot here I can utilize. Right, hot spot active. Let this go. Okay, well, it says it's on. All right, let's try this one. Okay, is this better?
Yes, Christina.
Okay, thank you, thank you. All right, where was I at? Oh, death doula, right. So what happens, in this 4D field is beyond time and space. So if we have connections with our ancestors energetically, right, throughout time and space, that means everything that they've gone through, we are connected to. So if you have ancestors that died in traumatic ways or were really drugged when they died and they were very confused at the moment of death, stuff like that, that has an impact on us because we have that connection, right? So it's really significant for those young ones that are arising to that call for being a death doula, because they're quite literally holding a multidimensional space for our beloveds to have a graceful dying process. And a major facet to that process is recapitulation, where you can revisit the times of your life with different people, different relationships, and come full circle with it, so you can actually pass without regrets and pass cleanly, as in once you pass, you're at peace and you have your time to, because a lot of people will hang around for a few days or more. You have time to process with your beloveds, but because they're at peace when they pass, there's no driving, lingering, unfinished business. So they're actually in a peaceful state while they're watching family come, with their process. And this is all a gift being offered by the death doula. And once they pass in peace, then then there's no unresolved issues that the living then need to process. And what happens if we don't process what's lingering inside of us, that's trauma and pain and stuff like that, if we don't process it, the generations after us have to process it. And that is why I encourage ancestor healing so much, because there's a lot of inertia pushing us through time and space of unresolved issues of our parents and grandparents. Okay, so once we clean that up, and this is what that forgiveness practice is for, once we clean that all up and bring deeper peace to our beloveds like this, then we can no longer have that inertia pushing us. We no longer have these recordings and emotional energies pushing us in directions that were really meant for our parents or our grandparents and not meant for us. Once we stop that inertia, we have a much clearer frame up of who we are in the here and now, and we can start focusing more of our energies on our current purpose, not resolving old issues and then getting to our current purpose. We can get to our current purpose right here, right now, without fighting the current. So death doulas do us all a great service. If you know somebody that's, has a calling for that, I invite you to encourage them. There's a movement here in the US called conscious dying, and that is where they're trying to end the practice of drugging someone when they're in the process of their organs shutting down. And I understand pain is pain, right? So it's up to the individual where they're at and what they want, of course. But in my experience, what I've noticed is that when you actually go through a recapitulation process and you start clearing the lenses of the people, they're clearing their lenses to these different aspects of who they are. When they die, they end up dying without pain, without the need for drugs. And then they have clarity. And when you are consciously aware at the moment of surrendering into death, that is a beautiful, beautiful recognition and transmission for all of those who are your relatives, are your beloveds. So everybody benefits from that kind of clarity. And then also you don't get lost in the ethers. A lot of people, because of belief systems, they run from the light, or maybe they believe that they're going to get punished or judged, before they get to the higher levels here of that canopy, and then they don't actually cross over. That happens pretty often too. And that happens especially for those who are really drugged when they pass, or have a really traumatic death, sudden traumatic death. Okay. So cleaning that up is worth it for all of us. So the key piece here is being able to cultivate a mind and perspectives that are liberating and that allow one to be extremely flexible with reality. When you can be flexible, when you don't push things away because you think it's wrong, or you don't, 86 this because that, or what I mean, you're free of dogma and you're free of the inertia of your ancestors. There's a profound clarity that happens, and it makes being present so much easier and more, let's say, exciting even, because it's no longer heavy lifting and solving problems. It's more about the joy of creating, the joy of doing. Okay. All right. So let's get into how to actually unlock this field when we're in a human body, when we are, when we have some things that we need to deal with, and we want to get past this canopy, because we know we have blind spots. We don't know exactly what those blind spots are, but we just can tell that they're there. And pretty much all of us have blind spots. And so what's the big key here? The big key to decoding this 4D field is cultivating an alter space. And when I say an alter space, I'm just talking about it's best if it's the same space all the time, but there are traditions that teach you how to build a moving altar. So it doesn't have to be in the same space, but what it is, it's a threshold. It is a cultivated threshold for the unseen and the seen to meet. That's what an altar space is. It's a cultivated threshold. And if it's in the same place, like in your meditation room, or if it's in the same place all the time, that's great, because you build up the resonance, and it's very easy to step in and open realms with your altar space. When you have a cultivated altar space that you travel with, it's just as easy. It's just the key piece here is it being cultivated, right? So I had well, I still have it, but it's invisible. But when in my training, I cultivated something called a mesa. It was a closed mesa, which means that altar table was closed until I opened it. There's some traditions of that same lineage that cultivate open mesas. And that means that it's something that stays open and it's for everybody. Mine was very specific to me and the people that I would choose to share it with. That was how that tradition went. So you need an altar space until you don't. And even after you come to a place of feeling like you don't need it, very often we continue with it because we enjoy it. It's something that brings us joy. We like to look at it. It's a good reminder, all those things. So the key piece to the altar space is being in the center. So if you guys remember the encodement, the very first week that was in that handout, there was something, a shape that was kind of like this. Let's see if I can do it here. I'm not the best drawing. I'm very good creative, but I'm not the best drawer. Okay, it's a little awkward here. There we go. This encodement right here. Okay, so this is the encodement for the 1D lens, for that lens that is the doorway to the resonance of the Pachamama, the heart and mind of the Pachamama. Now in 2D, it looks like a cross, but in three-dimensional form, if I was to cross-section this, there is a arm that comes out this way, and there's an arm that goes back the other direction. That's what it looks like in a 3D. In a 3D way. So using that image in your mind, you can simply sit down and hold that in your awareness, in your heart. And this is you acknowledging all the directions at once. Now, there's a practice where people officially call out to the directions, like you face the east, call out to the winds of the east, you face the south, you call out to the winds of the south, right? There's that kind of thing. And yeah, you can do that. But in this new paradigm, the way things work are changing. So by holding a structure like that in place, you might miss these little subtle cues from the interdimensional realms that there's something else being offered. Okay. So when you listen to your heartbeat, acknowledging your center here, and imagine the sun rising, opening that hyperdimensional space. So it's acknowledging the 7 directions, so to speak. And you can have nothing before you, or you can have a candle, an offering before you. You can have anything you wish. The one thing that I would say that is really, really helpful, no matter what, is having something to burn. Okay. And this is because after you focus on your heartbeat and acknowledge the rising sun and setting sun, right? You acknowledge these directions by that. The altar space is open. Now the threshold's been prepared, and you need to continue on with the work, which is you're doing some sort of shadow work. Because shadow work is the way to unwind blind spots. Blind spots held unconsciously and consciously are usually based in trauma and pain or belief systems, okay, which are also trauma, usually anchored in through trauma and pain. So you really can't get away from that. So shadow work are the parts that we really avoid because of the pain, because of the trauma. We may not be aware of why we avoid them, but that's deep down why we avoid these sorts of things. But when you open up a hyperdimensional space like that with the intent of going into a blind spot, helpers arise. Okay, so say there's a healing process that you're facilitating, right? You can call forward on the beings that are a part of or connected to your wounding process and your healing process. You can call them forward like this. And once you put out a call like that, you sit and you wait. You notice how the atmosphere, the most subtle little changes in the atmosphere happen. Notice the sensations that are happening in your body. Because as these beings show up into that space that you just opened, you're going to start getting little changes around you. Sometimes you'll get this happens actually pretty often. I'll get a whiff of flowers, like the most beautiful flowers, the most sweetest rose. Okay, I'll start getting whiffs of, or I might get whiffs of like rotten eggs. You know, it all depends on what are the energies I'm calling in. But then certain things will start firing off in my body, So they're coming in, they're coming in, they're coming in. And as I start getting those kinds of data sets, this is where I would light something. So when you light something like this as an offering or a smudge, and that could be incense, that could be sage, that could be Palo Santo. I mean, there's lots of things. Anything that really makes smoke is what you want, is because the smoke helps them come even further into your form, okay, into where you are in that hyperdimensional space. They come closer to you so you can have even more data sets, more awareness that they're with you. And as you pay attention to what's going on inside of your body, if it's emotions, you let yourself have the emotion. If it's a song that's trying to come out, have the song. If it's beating your fists on something, beat your fists. It's like, by you placing this intention and calling on these beings, your biosuit, your being just wants to start doing things like impulsively, and you follow those impulses. And as you follow those impulses and the energy starts moving through you, starts releasing, maybe it's trauma that was wound in, or maybe it was some stuff from the akasha that was entangled in your hips, or whatever. As it starts moving, because you're deep diving into this shadow work in the way that you're doing, you are activating your higher dimensional levels of your field. And once you start doing that, that's when you start having very high dimensional beings start arriving and assisting you in the process. Because once that part of the field starts to get activated, you have helpers that help you maintain the activation or even enhance it and magnify it. And then you start cooking even more. I call it cooking because it's like getting put in the oven and you're bubbling, right? And the density is moving. You could be crying your eyes out one second, and the next second you want to sing a song of joy and beauty and grace, right? So you just keep following it. Just keep following it. Do not let the mind be involved. And after you've let all that stuff move, after you've let these pieces activate and have the freedom to and the permission to move through you, then comes the teaching. The teaching is usually from these higher dimensional beings. Not always, though. Sometimes it's actually from the elementals that have arose. Oh, that's the piece I left out. So when all this stuff starts moving, the elemental beings inside of your body that were trapped in that stuck energy become liberated as well. So the elemental presence becomes magnified. And the elemental presence is the fire, air, water, earth, and ether. Our body is made up of all of those elements. So as you release emotional stuff, you're freeing up these elemental beings from your body so they can move on to where they belong in a harmonious place. They'll go back to their people. They go back to their realm, so to speak. And as this moves, more allies show up until you're ready for the teaching. Now, in a perfect world, I say that facetiously because it is a perfect world, but I know our ego driver doesn't think so. Our ego driver really wants the teaching to come in words, right? Where we can write it down and understand it, or maybe write it down and see it and work to understand it, right? But these beings don't work that way because they're not in linear form. Our language that we have is very linear, and it does not have the ability to encompass the ideas that these other beings are wanting to convey. So instead, what we do is we open ourselves up to our creativity. So in your altar space, in the altar space you might have a favorite poem. You may have pictures of your ancestors. You may have something that was a treasured toy that you had when you were younger or something like it. Like the Chinese handcuffs. Remember those with your, have something like this on your altar. There's a lot of wisdom teaching in those Chinese handcuffs, finger cuffs, really. And maybe you have a favorite piece of art, a painting that you've done, or a little drawing, or a rubbing that you've taken from a tree or a leaf or something like this. You have these objects within your space, within your altar space. And these teachers will start impulsing you to either look at, play with, contemplate, maybe draw things out, do a squiggly, something like this. And this, by you engaging, you're encouraging them to continue engaging you. So if you hinder yourself from engaging in doing these things that have no logical purpose, then you're actually hindering the connection. You're hindering the teaching that someone is, the being is trying to work with you with. Yes, there's downloads, but it takes a while to digest downloads, and our mind will never understand the download until after we've digested it. So that's, that has its limitations. Sometimes, I don't know about you guys, but I've had downloads that's taken me decades to digest. And it's not until, a lot of personal work that finally I actually understand what happened and what that download was about. Yeah. Okay. So in having these objects in your space will help you with the dialogue that's happening. And, Barbara tells a very interesting story when she originally got the download, the bursting open of her consciousness to these teachings. This was with the writing of the Pleiadian agenda. So she ended up having a download, and with it came really severe tinnitus. And she was just like, I have to do something with this or I'm going to be driven mad. So the first thing she did was she started working with a past life regression therapist, and she did this journey of past life regressions. She did like 100 of them, past life regressions, to help her resolve past issues that were in her subconscious that were blocking her from digesting this transmission. Okay. And really way later on, she after digesting it, she opens up and lets us know that Satya was, that's the Pleiadian she refers to in the Pleiadian agenda. Satya is actually simultaneously incarnated aspect of her in the Pleiades. Okay. But there was a lot of density within her being that kept her from being able to allow that to be so. So she did what she knew, which was deal with the past life stuff that's holding these blind spots, keeping her from digesting. And that was actually a whole series of books by itself. I think it was a trilogy, the Heart of the Christos trilogy, right? She wrote all about those past life regressions. And then after that, she was able to do channeling sessions. So people would get together in groups and they would do channeling sessions, and then they would channel messages from Satya, and then people would transcribe, do this stuff. So it was truly a community effort to help her bring this through. And then during that process, she was able to scribble, do squigglies and scribbles of different shapes and polygons and stuff like this, until she felt like she had the polygon that was the right shape, that held the energy of the download. So she brought the download, brought it into 3D with drawing, right? So she used her creativity and her ability to draw and manifest in that way to help bring it through. And that also helped. So what she would do is sit and contemplate and meditate upon that drawing that she made, that helped her digest it even more. So these downloads are great, but just because it get downloaded in a split second doesn't mean it's going to be split second to your understanding. A lot of times it's coming in that download form because there's a lot of work that needs to happen to process and digest, to actually get the wisdom within these downloads. So when you're using an altar space, this is a really wonderful way to cultivate a way to bring the teachings forward in the moment, right? So you'll have an experience with these different objects in your altar space, and then things, you've done your shadow work, it's moving, things are moving, and you have your experience with these different objects. And then it's time to wrap up and say goodbye. You say, thank you, thank you, thank you. You thank everybody who is working with you. And then you move on, close the space. Throughout your days and nights, because it'll come through your dream time as well, your subconscious is going to continue working with those objects. So that means you might be driving down the road and you'll be thinking about that Chinese finger cuff that you're playing with, right? Or you'll be driving down the road and you'll be thinking about your squiggly. Okay. Now, logically, there's nothing there, but energetically and intuitively, it's a big, rich source. And it's on a subconscious level, you're working it through, working it through. And it gets to the point where some of these objects become sacred objects in the sense that as soon as you see it, it represents a very well cultivated, digested wisdom teaching, and it's a cue for you that something really big is on the horizon or is here. Right. So there's things like that also get developed over this process. And then you'll start to realize that they're the same beings that are coming to you each time, especially with those higher dimensional frequencies, because they're quite literally our family. And those keepers, a lot of those keepers are our family. So the same beings will end up coming over and over and over again. The more you do this work, the more you encourage the connection, the more uninhibited you are in connecting. So pretty soon you'll get to know your own Pleiadian friends, your own Sirian friends, your own friends from Andromeda, from Arcturus, from all these different star systems. You'll start to recognize how they truly are a part of your family. And that's not an anecdotal thing. It's a true relationship that you have and that you've cultivated. So you're learning the neighborhood, so to speak, okay, as a human. And this is really what it means for a human to wake up to their galactic citizenship, okay, is that you've cultivated these connections, you've cultivated this community, you've cultivated, how you belong in the bigger picture of things, okay? You've done that by your dedication of unwinding your blind spots. Let's see where, okay. So much fun. So these objects will start appearing to you and speaking to you in different ways. And art, poetry, dance is a really powerful modality as well. Maybe there's some song that comes out of you if you're a musician. Maybe there's some songs that start playing to you. So you can utilize all these pieces to help work this energy through more and more and more and cultivate these connections. Now, when Barbara was originally doing these activations, well, I shouldn't say originally, I should say phase two of doing these activations, she was equipped with this amazing tool cultivated by a world famous composer named Michael Stern. And he, beautiful composer. I don't know if you guys saw the remake of Battlestar Galactica. I watched that in the 70s when I was a kid. So when the remake came out, I had to see it. It was a sci-fi remake, much different, the remake. But anyway, they had amazing music. The music was so moving, and that was composed by Michael Stern, that music. He uses a lot of voice and a lot of really, really heartfelt, tribal type sounds. Anyway, he read the Pleiadian Agenda, and that chapter of the 9 lenses jumped out to him too. And he was so inspired that he decided that he was going to compose music to activate each of these lenses, each of these dimensions within people. And he didn't use regular instruments. He actually made the instruments so they would make the right sound, the exact right sound that he wanted. And that is what the CD is, the Alchemy of the 9 Dimensions CD is, that you can find on Barbara Handclau's website. It's 10 tracks, 1 track for each dimension. And then the 10th track is all the dimensions playing together, which is activating the 10D axis. So it's really beautiful, beautiful composition. And that is what Barbara used to activate the dimensions in conjunction with ceremony. So when we would get together in Lilydale, Friday night, we would tune in to the frequencies of the Milky Way. And she did that via teachings of the Mayan calendar. And she talked about the creation waves. So we would go into deeper analyzation of the creation waves unfolding that were emanating out of the Milky Way galaxy. And then we would weave in astrology and stuff like that. So that would be Friday. And then Saturday was the activation itself. And she would give us some tools to help work the polarity fields. And the activation was a ceremony. So that means doing exactly what we're talking about with the altars. It's the honoring the directions. She used a lot of pipe pipe ceremony work, eagle feather work, stuff like this. It was all part of her Cherokee tradition that she wove in. And so then it was a ceremony, and then we would play the music, and we would play the music through amazing sound system that was really loud. So as these tones would play, it would vibrate through your body, you know. And it's okay if you could put earmuffs on and not hear the details, because it was really about that visceral thing. And then we would do the activation, and then close the space, digest and process, and then digest and process with people. And then the third day we would go through a wrapping up process, you know, where we are, like where we were versus where we're at now, kind of thing. Usually when I went there, I would come in there with a very specific problem I was trying to resolve and was having difficulty resolving. So I would use that whole process to help me work through these, in my mind, impossible situations. So I can tell you firsthand that these problem solving, using these for problem solving, absolutely work. Absolutely. Just it's not about how do I say that? So some people, when they have a really big experience in their physical body, they're like, wow, that was so powerful. Maybe not, right? It was powerful in the moment, in the sense of there was a lot of visceral sensations and it felt like things really moved. But the real power of the work comes later with the feedback loop you get from reality, the feedback loop that you get from the world. Okay, that's where the rubber meets the road. That is truly where the power of that process you went through is shown. Okay, I have an example of so I had I still have two daughters, but at the time they were both teenagers. Woo-hoo. Like 12, 13, they're 18 months apart. So, you know, I had a 12 and 13-year-old girl at the same time. Oh, yay, right? So there was a point in time in their teenagehood where everything out of my mouth, they hated. It triggered some kind of response. It's like, no matter what I said, even if I offered them coffee, it was the wrong thing to say. It was like nothing I could do was right. And I felt like I was walking on eggshells not to upset my kids. And I was upset about that. I was like, gosh, you know, it's like I love my kids. I really want them to be well. And they're like actively hating my guts. It's like, what did I do? What's wrong with me? Right. I was really, you know, being self-critical of yourself as a mother, I think comes naturally, but I was like really in that self-critical role. Like I did something wrong. And I did some shadow work, and in the shadow work, what happened was I started to pull my energy, my thoughts, my emotions, my beliefs, started pull my energy out of their body and out of their fields, and literally pull my energy out of their bodies and out of their fields. And as I was doing that, I noticed that their energy was also inside of me. Right. So as I pulled my energy back, it was like tendrils with these sucker things on them, you know. It was like I was all over there. I was all over them, you know. Of course, they're my kids. So you're in their business until they get older and they don't want you there. So I pulled all my energy back from them. And as I was doing that, their energy was coming out of me back to them. And I did this for very thoroughly. It was a super thorough clearing. I like did it until I felt like I couldn't find anything left. It was like I focused until there was nothing left. Nothing hiding, nothing under a stone, you know, everything. It felt completely clear. No matter what I did, I couldn't find any more. So I did it to that level of thoroughness. And then I come home and the girls are there. And it was the sweetest thing. And this is the feedback loop that I'm talking about. Okay, this is how you really know. I come home and my kids, they're looking at me and they're smiling. And I'm like, wow. Hi. And they're like, hi. And my oldest daughter speaks up and she's like, you know, Mom, we don't know anything about your life before you had kids. You know, we know that you've done stuff, but we don't know what it is that you actually did. Like, what did you do when you were a teenager? What did you do when you were, you know, before you met Dad? Right. And I was just like, oh my gosh, they want to talk to me. Right. I was just like elated, like, holy crap. That is like an instant feedback loop right there. So really what was going on was they, my kids are sensitive anyway, but they were sensitive to my energy, like feeling invaded by, they were feeling invaded and I was feeling invaded. Logically, we didn't put those two together, but then once I did that, then it realized, oh my gosh, when we have space to be who we are with each other, we really love each other. We want to be with each other. Okay. So we sat down for almost 3 hours and I was telling them about some of my crazy adventures in my life. And we laughed and had a wonderful time. So that's the feedback loop. That's the kind of feedback loop that you're looking for to reinforce that what you did was a really potent session. Okay. Because I've had energy medicine sessions where I'm super altered and I'm feeling lots of pulsing and I'm feeling a lot of stuff. And I'm like, wow, it's really amazing. And I leave completely, in cloud nine, full of gratitude. Everything's great. But in the unfoldment of my life, just a little tiny bit changed. Okay. Just a little tiny bit. And it's not saying anything about the healer or me or anything. I'm just saying that intense data set of in the moment isn't always the same. It's not really indicating the power of the feedback loop that's coming. Okay. A lot of times, some of the most profound shifts I didn't even notice until later. There's a woman that I worked with. Her name was Almeen. I love the work of Almeen. She's really out there. So I did a weekend in New York City with her. And I remember that entire weekend, I was angry. I was mad about everything. And the whole weekend we got together to step outside of time. That was the point, was to end the inertia that was tying us to linear time, that was holding our awareness in the linear time, holding our awareness in this field. And the work to do that was like, there was a lot of us, our ego driver, that was really attached to this 4D thing. So it was really interesting work to do it, but I was angry, and I could not get out of my anger. And even when she came over, she would come over and give me a hug, ask me how I'm doing. And I'm like, I didn't want to tell her I was angry, but she knew it. She totally knew I was angry. But anyway, so the very last day, we're checking out of our hotel. I get out of the shower and I look in the mirror and I notice that all of the things that I would normally pick at myself, when you look in the mirror, getting out of the shower, you're naked, you kind of like nitpick yourself, like this is wrong, that's wrong, this, and moms, we have lots of things to pick at. I was in the mirror and I was acutely aware that I had no complaint. I had nothing to pick at. It was like, wow, what? And the recording of the habit wanted to happen, but it just wasn't there. Okay. And I was like, wow, things really did shift, even though I was mad. I didn't ruin my process by willfully being angry the whole time, and I met with my friend and we got in our plane, we went home. And the entire time I was like, wow, what the heck happened? And I realized that moment when she came up to hug me, that did something really significant. And I was so wrapped up, my awareness was so wrapped up in being angry and not wanting to tell her I was angry, that had my attention. But what was actually happening behind that, I was completely oblivious to. It didn't occur to me until I was just quiet and with myself. And then I realized, wow, something really big just happened. Okay. So when you're in these processes, don't measure it by what you can tell what's going on. Just be willing to be there, place your intent and go with it. Just let it happen. And then the feedback loop will show you just how deep you did go with that work. Okay. Forgiveness practice. So actually, I'll pause here for a moment. Are there questions that anybody has about what I'm talking about? Because I know we're talking about practical applications. It's important that this lands for you guys.
Yeah, Shanu, can I unmute?
Hi.
Hi, Christina. How are you?
I'm good.
I have a question. As soon as you started talking about like the, some downloading and the person has the, the tinnitus, like the ear thing. I noticed that I, started humming. So I have been humming since you started talking about this download, and I want to stop it, but I'm not able to stop it. So I'm listening to you, but I'm constantly humming. It's like very, I don't know what it means.
Yes, yes. Wow. So that's a good thing to pick up on. Yeah, don't stop it. Keep humming. The humming is helping you with process. There's something about that. Well, and you also have beings with you. I don't know if you notice, you have like, they're on either side behind there's these beings that kind of hold space. One of them's a male. And there's lots of love, you're being held in love. So they're helping you process. These are your own entourage people. So they're helping you process what's going on. And then you're going to digest exactly what's right for you. So keep the humming up. The humming helps us process. Okay. And sound is really profound. You can heal with sound, you can harm with sound. So when you're in a process like this and sound is happening, it's like there's an opening going on. There's some sort of vibration that needs acknowledgement and expression in order for you to digest energetically what's happening. Oh, you're on mute, darling. There you go.
Yeah, thank you. And it has happened before also when I'm like not all the time, but when I'm meditating. So this sound comes and my hand just goes like, in a like that, or sometimes it goes like this. So I just and I can't stop it. So
this is exactly what I'm talking about. Yes, that's you see, you already have the skills down. Yes, when you're in your altar space and these movements start happening, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay. Can you, if you have time, can you tell me like about the entourage? You said you saw some beings.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can talk about the entourage. So, so let's see. So what she's talking about, first I want to talk about the spontaneous movements. This is exactly what I'm meaning when you're in your altered space. Now you can couple this with a specific intent, like to resolve, maybe there's some anguish or heartache between you and your mom, right? You can go into an altar space and work it like that. Like, and so when these movements are happening, it's directly related to your intent to alchemize that relationship that you have going on with mom. So good job. You're there with that. So with the entourage is different than spirit guides. Spirit guides are beings that have had a human experience. They have a contract with you to help you with specific things. And that there's a huge spectrum in there. So, but pretty much the guiding rule is that they have had a human lifetime, and it's a soul level agreement that they have with you to be walking along. And as soon as you complete the task that they've been contracted with you to do, they will often move on and they'll no longer be in your spirit guide team. Okay. The entourage, however, is much different. The entourage is your higher dimensional family. So when you start activating different higher dimensional aspects of your field, of your being, your entourage will start coming into your field. So in my entourage, it's a broad spectrum of what one might call extraterrestrial life. I have a spectrum from insectoid to lions, to pure light beings, to pure consciousness beings, and this whole thing in between, Syrians and Pleiadians and Andromedans and momos and dolphins and whales. I mean, there's this huge spectrum. And the reason why they're there and I can have an interaction is it's from activating these higher dimensional aspects of my field. And in the shadow work process, they have come into my field enough times, we've cultivated a relationship. You see, so the ones that I'm talking about here with you, that's an entourage. That's you activating higher aspects of your field, and you have entourages that are here to help you with that. You see what I mean? So
yeah. So is there a spectrum you see, like the entourage spectrum? Which being you saw? Like, I'm sorry, I'm taking your time, but.
Well, yeah, I don't want to necessarily say names, but one is definitely a Syrian presence and feels male, and the other one looks more cat-like. Yeah, okay, they would also be Syrian too. Mhm.
Syrians?
Yeah, Syrians.
Okay. Thank
Do you
you.
have resonance with that?
Sorry?
Do you have a resonance with that? You see.
No.
Oh, okay. So when I say resonance, that means like there's a sense of like, oh yeah, that I don't know why that makes sense. You know what I mean?
No, I mean, I have heard this word and I was always wondering what does Syrian mean? So maybe that's why, even though
Oh, I
I'm
see.
not aware of it. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Christina. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, so there's a lot of us that have connections with the Syrians because that's a calling. We're being called to activate that aspect of our being, because that's part of our unfoldment. But Syrians don't mean a very specific race. So Syrian, the star system, Sirius, that's star consciousness. But then you have races that are within the Syrian star system, and that's where you get the Momos and the different dolphin beings, and you have the Lyrans, and well, there's a whole bunch. There's lots of races that are associated with the Syrians, from reptilians to insectoids to lions. So it's a broad spectrum.
So they are with us all the time, or just momentarily they come and they leave entourage?
Right, they come in for the time that they're there, and then they're done and they leave. They don't walk around with you. Like your spirit guides are always hanging around,
Okay.
But not so much.
Thank you, Christina.
Absolutely, thank you. All right, I have there is a question here about messages from extraterrestrials, and that is Dapthi. Is that said that? Is there? I'm just feeling into what that means.
Sorry, Christina, what you are telling?
Hi.
Hi.
Okay.
Tell me, you're asking something, Christina.
Oh yes, this messages from extraterrestrials. That's what I was.
Yeah, I just answered the question to her. She was asking.
Yeah. I had asked Christina what is a download, and she was answering the question to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Extraterrestrials. Yes.
You can explain a little bit more about it, please.
I see.
Yeah.
Thank you. So extraterrestrials, that's such a broad spectrum of understanding, because a lot of people will think extraterrestrials like these beings and UFOs that come and land and will walk out. And really a lot of the extraterrestrial life that we're engaged with are interdimensional and non-corporeal. So they don't have a body, and they're not going to fly here on a metal ship. They're going to come on, either come on a stream of light, or they come in some sort of light geometry or plasma orb or something like that. Those are interdimensional beings that we would call ET, just because we don't know better. And I say that for all humans, because we have this particular frame up of what we think reality is, and there are many beings that we would call ET that actually live on this planet and in this planet, like under the ground. So a lot of them have been here on this planet lot longer than humans. So who's the ET exactly? You know what I mean? Okay. All right. So I just wanted to ask questions about the practical applications. If you guys had any more.
Yeah. If you have any questions, I can unmute them. Please, you can raise the hands. And before that, I want to tell about the advanced level course that is coming up on February. You can register to that for meeting Christina once again, and for having good interaction with her.
Thank you.
It is. Link is posted in the chat box. You can go through it, or otherwise you can register at pssga.org.
So
thank you so much. Yeah, Shanu, 1 second.
Thank you.
Is that okay? Yes. You have time? Okay. Christina, like you just talked about extraterrestrial, about like they come as a light, or something like that. I had experienced one time I was meditating, and then I saw like, like huge ball of light It's like a sun. In the god Vishnu, he has that Sudarshan chakra. It's like a really bright light coming towards me, and it came till here, and I got scared, and I just opened my eyes, and I was just wondering what was that.
Mm-hmm. So, all right. So, right. So beings, when we meditate, we are expanding ourselves. And when we are stilling, when we are creating stillness in this field, it's like pulling a curtain back to the cosmos. Okay. And when we are doing that, our higher dimensional fields are also getting activated because now our awareness is touching it. See, our awareness is so powerful. Our awareness brings alchemy to things. So once that curtain opens and you're in the presence of the cosmos, which is you, there's beings that reach out to us. And they're going to reach out to us in different forms. If we have a history with them, it's likely that they will reach out to us in a form that we have interacted with them in the past. When I say the past, I mean either this life or some other lifetime. Okay, so that's usually how that comes forward. So the thing is that once our mind gets involved, we qualify it. As soon as fear kicks up, our ego driver, it's like headlights just for those ones, the visor when you play video games, the fear comes up, the ego driver goes from stillness to full on action. And now you're seeing through the lens and the fear is activated. So one of the things that the ancient shaman used to do is practice being still while in fear, while in terror, right? So this is mastery here. This is using your presence and your awareness to override the reptilian brain in its reaction fear mode. You use your awareness to override that knee-jerk reaction, and instead there's a pause where you can take a breath instead of react with the fear. And there's lots of ways to do this. One of them being is assuming you don't do it all the time, because if you do it all the time, it'll become therapeutic and your body will like it. But if you don't do it all the time, you would submerge like maybe your arm in ice water and hold it there for as long as you can, or have what the Jaguar shamans do is they would hang themselves upside down. And all the blood would rush to their head, to the point of just being close to passing out, and they would use that threshold to keep their awareness. So they don't actually, so their body passing out they would override that physiological response. I can talk. So I remember, one other trick that we did, this was fun. We had a rat trap. Now, rat traps are huge. Mouse traps, they're like this big, but rat traps, they're giant, right? And at the time I was a body worker, and my hands had to be well, or else I couldn't do my work. And I had to get the penny off of the mechanism in the rat trap. Now, if it was a mouse trap, I could, I would have, my bones are pretty strong. I'm not going to break, but a rat trap, that's a whole nother business. So they're like, okay, so get the penny. And I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it some more, like getting, I'm devising the strategy. And until finally I feel for the right moment, and I go in and I take the penny. And I did. I got the penny, and I didn't break my hand. But this kind of practice helps you discover what your process is that to get past that reptilian brain control mechanism. So I would suggest start finding some practice for you to get involved with. So the next time something triggers that kind of fear, you can take that pause for the breath versus have that knee-jerk response. You see what I mean? Yeah. So we are unlearning a lot of the things that we've learned. And unfortunately, the powers that be on this planet have really used fear and suffering to, control and put in, very limiting ideas. So it's quite a task to get past that reptilian brain response. Another thing you can do, and I want to say this for everybody, is you can actually start feeding your brainstem with the breath of life. Start breathing the breath of life into your brainstem and start cleaning it out. Start cleansing the brainstem from things that are enlodged in there. And they could be inherited, or they could have been something that you experienced in this life. So that's also a potent practice to reclaim your physicality. Okay. All right. So I want to go. Thank you, dear. That was a really great piece to bring in. So I want to talk about forgiveness practice and entanglements. So you guys have the practice that you can download and start bringing this alchemy in. So this forgiveness practice is in the same context that I'm talking about with altar building, or at using the altar to cut through this field. And it's a very simple practice, but what's most important about it is your intent and you paying attention. So you have your intent and you're focusing your awareness. So it's just not a matter of reading words on a page, because when you're reading words on the page, your brain is staying in the linear and you're staying in the mental field, and you're not getting deep into the subconscious, not getting deep into the body. So and this is why it's recorded, so you can have you can step out of the need to read and just listen to the words and repeat the sentiment that is true for you. The forgiveness practice, the alchemy of it is bringing in grace, beauty, and compassion into your relations, not just with your family, but with other beings as well. So it's a key piece to helping stop that inertia of what you've inherited, stop the inertia of what you've inherited, so you can be more neutrality energetically in the here and now. This is a major facet to the work that we do at the Academy. We use forgiveness practice to address body pain, to address unresolved issues with loved ones, to address past life traumas, to address even issues that we have with past indoctrination experiences. I've actually had a huge opening, alchemical opening personally by doing a forgiveness practice with Kali Ma. I had no idea there was issues there. I just knew that she was always somewhere in the background in my awareness when I was doing things, Kali Ma. And I had such an affection for the energy of what she represents. And it wasn't until I had a Taoist master actually sit with me and walk me through a forgiveness practice did I recognize all of these deep connections that I had with the energy being called Kali Ma, but also all the cults that we've had throughout history that was dedicated to her energy. Some of them started off really beautiful, but many, went into very dark places. So as I did the forgiveness practice, I reclaimed all the quantum of mind that was entangled in those past experiences throughout many, many thousands of years. So ever since I did that, I had a much deeper level of peace with dogma, with programming, with religions. It's like before I had a bit of a lot more of an edge about it. And then after that particular practice, the feedback loop for me was I was much more liberated when I saw that sort of thing in front of me. I didn't have so much charge and angst about it. So just one of the many examples of how this practice can be utilized. And I also want to touch on the advanced training that dear sister Deptha talked about. So like I said, this work is more energetic. There's intellectual pieces that are interesting to talk about and even fun, but most of it is about the energies, the transmissions, and digesting and understanding how to build a relationship with these different beings. So the teacher training is more about experiences. We go through, like, for example, we'll go very deep into pieces of the forgiveness practice and how to unravel quantum that belongs in the here and now with us, but is off still in interaction with some things that happened in the past, or maybe some things that we deeply wish for in the future. Okay, so it's a technique to bring us to reclaim our quantum. So we're more present in the here and now, but then we're also going to be going much deeper into cultivating these relationships with the keepers of these dimensional realms. because when you're teaching this, it's not necessarily the intellectual stuff, it's the actual process, the activation process. So I had a wonderful example. I worked with Barbara, and when this stuff came very naturally to me. It was like, I've always known it. So when I was facilitating activations, it would be an hour or two. I would work. I did all these years work so I could just do this activation that was an hour or two, right? So this teacher training is about getting you to that place so you can facilitate with grace and ease this process for other people, and how and it being integrated, and how you do it. You're okay doing it completely what's true for you. It's how I do it won't be how you do it. When in the beginning, I would use the recording of Michael Stern's work, but then as time goes on, I did it completely differently. Now it's to the point where, well, you guys experienced it last week. Now it's to the point where it's just walking, addressing the relationship with the different keepers as such, where it's a matter of welcoming them into the field, and then they do their work. I'm not really doing anything. I'm just saying, okay, you next. Okay, you next. Okay, you next, right? It's like that, because that's the relationship that's been built. But if I don't have that relationship built, I don't feel comfortable saying, Pleiadians, yeah, come. Not only do I not feel, I wouldn't feel comfortable calling on them, but it would be like, who are you? If I didn't already have a relationship, they'd be like, well, who are you? Do you know who you are? You know what I mean? Then it's like, it turns into a shadow thing. But because once that relationship is built and you have it, and it's something that you've worked with, it's simply a matter of inviting them in, and they assist in the work that you're doing. Very similarly to where we began in the beginning with the healer and client on the table. When you're empty and the whole spirit's working through you, you're simply just holding space and being the vessel. But it takes some time to work into that for many of us, because we need to trust ourselves. We need to pass through those thresholds of doubt that we hold for ourselves. I remember a lot of people in that group that I was in Lilydale, they didn't do activations because they didn't feel qualified, even though Barbara gave them permission. It's like, well, what do you not know this work? Do you feel uncomfortable with it? It's like, oh no, I know it and I love it, but I don't feel qualified. And I'm like, well, how much qualification do you need to put the CD in and hit play? I would say stuff like that. I was really snarky when I was younger, as you can imagine. So this is a really important work, not just for our personal empowerment, knowing that we have that ability to do that, but also us playing the role in helping liberate other people, right? We are way showers. We are here to bring change. We're here to encourage those creators. We're here to rise to our highest form of humanity. And this creating activations like this for people can be a part of that if you feel called to it. Now, I feel like it really needs to be a calling. If you feel called to teach this work, this is a great way to do it. It's 12 weeks. It's 12 weeks of getting together and doing practices. So it's rather intense. But it's a transformative process. And even if you don't want to facilitate afterwards, you'll still have a very significant healing process of your own happen during that time. So these times of change, we need to courageously step forward into our way showership. And in doing so, we are encouraging others to do the same. And this could be a great platform for that, a really great platform for that. And who doesn't want to be friends with ETs, right? Who doesn't want to be friends? There's so many beings right now assisting humanity. There's so many beings really rooting for humanity to step up and save themselves. So there's lots and lots of assistance. So when you're doing this, you're never, never, never on your own, ever. All right. Let's see where we're at. Oh, okay. We still have 15 minutes. Very nice. Okay. So I can continue on with some more pieces, or I can take questions. I don't want to overload you guys. If you are there
your wish, if anybody wants to have questions, please ask. Yeah, we can continue it in the next week. So anybody can ask questions, right?
Okay.
Yeah. And I want to share the experience because I do have some connections with the extraterrestrials. Like, I don't know, we here in India, we will pray him as a god, but every time, whenever I just think he will be there right beside me to talk with me or to guide me every time. That is Lord Hanuman.
The what one?
Hanuman.
Hanuman. Oh, I love Hanuman. Okay. The Monkey King. Oh, yes, have deep resonate.
I just love him like anything.
Yes.
I can feel him, like if I want to talk, I can feel him right beside me every time.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And there's some teachings he has for you, yes?
No, he'll be there for me to guide. I'll be just asking him to take me astrally to the Manas Sarovar every time.
Okay, okay. Thank you for that. And if I can make this connection real quick, for those of you who are Sasquatch creators and work with those beings, there's a lot of lore that connects the Sasquatch Yahweh with Hanuman, the Monkey King. I don't know if you guys have ever watched Michael Harrell, but he makes those connections very often, that they are.
Okay, two resources.
Yeah, and I have few, means I don't see the people, but I can smell the things.
Yes.
First my experience was with I got ghee smell, first one.
Okay.
Clarified butter.
Yeah. Oh,
And the second experience is with the neem oil.
Oh, interesting, with neem. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And acetophodia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's the really smelly, the real strong
Yes,
smell.
yes. And recently I got the smell of that Muslims, they will use that scent, right? Special scent. Muslim people. Oh yeah, I have seen that. When I questioned, I can talk and connect with that master, Sufi master.
Oh yeah, I've read deep resonance with the Sufis as well. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And this is a good point that you're bringing in here, is because, you know, a lot of our blind spots is because we want information to come in a certain way, but really our biosuits, our being is vast, and there's many ways in which we can pick up data sets. So data sets could be smell, they could be taste, they could be ideas, they could be tones, they could be songs. If you're lucky, you'll have an image. If you're lucky, you'll have words. But most of the time, 99% of the time, it does not come via image or words. It's coming through these other more visceral sensations, the smells, the taste, the feeling, the goosebumps, the movement in the body. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for bringing that forward. And that's actually very frustrating for a lot of folks, because when they have a buzzing on their shoulder, the first place that they want to go in their mind is, what does the buzzing mean? Versus if you go take the opposite approach, instead drop in and really focus your awareness with that buzzing, like go into it, then that's where the other data starts to come. And that's where your awareness is actually unraveling things that are stuck by touching it with your consciousness, with your ability to perceive and be aware, to be present with something.
Thank you so much, Christina.
Okay. Anybody else have questions about the practical applications of this work? Maybe you want to sample. Hi.
Hello, ma'am. Ma'am, my question is that do we when connect with, as you said, with people who are extraterrestrials like Syrians or Pleiadians, is it that we connect with we have a connection with only one particular race, or like, is it possible that I can connect with both Shambhala masters as well as Pleiadians and Syrians, or is it that I'll get downloads only from one particular master? And how do I know that which master I'm connected to? That is my question.
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, thank you for that. So, all right. So remember, we're coming out of we're coming out of one paradigm and moving into the other. So pretty much those structures, all those mystery school structures that we've had before are coming to a close and being reborn as something else in this new energy. So first there's that kind of thing going on. So how things used to be isn't how it's evolving into being, right? So there's that kind of piece. But so what happens is it's all about resonance. So when you first have your separation, I'm just going to take us all back into the isness, a big, great big, endless isness. And from the isness is an intent that comes right out of, like a thought out of the isness. And that intent is you, your soul, your beingness. That intent has a resonance. And that resonance is going to be the deciding factor on where you go, anywhere within the Milky Way galaxy and the dimensions and realms in between. That resonance is looking for its match. So wherever that resonance match throughout time, space, reality, in the specific galactic arena, that is where your beingness is going to start to incarnate. Now, many of us have woken up on who we are beyond the Milky Way galaxy. So our resonance has shifted in a major way. But what's happening when very specific beings are coming into your field, it's because it's a resonant match for where you are right now. So a lot of people, when upon their awakening, they're usually, not always, especially nowadays, but they're, usually within the camp of Pleiadian Sirian. First Pleiadians, then Sirian. Or sometimes they skip right over the Pleiadians and go into Sirians. But that is because there is a resonance within you that is a match. And so when you meet the Sirian consciousness in whatever form it's in, it feels like coming home. It feels like you're connecting with the being that you've had such a deep connection with. Maybe you've always been together, like this kind of thing, right? So that's why it's so. But as soon as you integrate with those aspects of who you are and the purpose of what needs to unfold or unravel, because with that connection, then you're going to move on and have a similar feeling with a different kind of being. Another kind of being is going to start coming into your awareness. Maybe it's from Andromeda. Maybe it's from the Galactic Council, right? So those kinds of beings will start coming into your awareness, and then if it'll feel like coming home again. Our mind is going to be like, wait a minute, how could that be home when this felt like home, right? But it's simply because it's that resonance match. It's so natural and it's so beautiful and graceful, and it just brings so much love and gratitude from our beingness being in connection. Okay, so it's also the similar kind of process when you're talking about masters, right? So for the longest time, I really had an aversion to Eastern teachings. I don't know why, but through my process, now, when I go into especially when I go to realms like Mantak Chia's compound in Thailand and stuff like that, it really feels like coming home. Like I've been in the lineage of those masters for so long that, it's a coming home process for me, even though technically I don't consider myself Taoist, but it's because of that resonance match. It's so, right? That's how it goes. So I'm going to mention this because you're young. The young ones coming in have a vast spectrum that they resonate with. So it may be multiple beings coming into your path that you feel a deep connection with, and to have to choose one or the other, I'm going to invite you, try not to have to choose. Allow each one to bring the beauty in its fullness as it is, and let it be so. Okay. And then the right beings will come on your path at the right time.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yes. Thank you. That was a great question. I think a lot of people have that interest. How do I know? When I got started, I was so young. Gosh, I was a teenager. And what woke me up initially was meditation and mantras. I discovered yoga, and at the time, the teacher that I was drawn to was she was a very old-fashioned traditional yoga teacher. So she wasn't quite like before yoga got westernized, and it was a deep dedication practice, and it was meditation in motion was the premise. And as soon as I got introduced to meditation and mantras, it was like the universe blew open for me. And I met her guru, who I had profound meditations with, but I didn't necessarily feel a connection. And then I met his guru, who came to me in dream time, and it was his guru that I felt such a strong connection with. And it was just like, then I realized, oh, that's why I came to this yoga teacher, because she's connected to the guru's guru, you know. And then I worked with this in Dreamtime, and then it moved into something else. And then one day I just said to the universe, bring me my teacher, bring me my teacher. I'm ready. I was like, full on, I'm ready. And it wasn't just one teacher that came, it was two. One was Barbara Hand-Clow, and the second one was Alberto Bioldo, who is the founder of the 4-1 Society. So those two teachings combined blasted me open in exactly the way that I needed to. And I would have been heartbroken if I had to choose one or the other, really. Okay, Shanu's back. Hi, Shanu.
Yeah. Hi, Christina. If others don't have question, may I ask you?
Oh, okay. There's no one. Okay, that's fine. Go ahead, dear.
Okay. I wanted to share the same thing as Deepti said, that she could sense the smell, like, so it happened with me also. My dad was doing some silence retreat, and I used to volunteer there, and I used to pick him up. So every time, like, it was like 3-4 days, and every day when we were coming back, I could feel this fragrance lingering from the center till we reach home. So it was, those like jasmine kind of smell, like from all the way. So I thought it was springtime. I thought maybe it's from the trees or something. So now I'm realizing it could be, because it was every day, and from center till we reach home, that was a beautiful experience. And another one I wanted to ask you, remember last time I showed you that scribbly writing I wrote, and you had told me. So once I'm done, should I always keep it, or what should be done with that?
Right. So it's a dynamic process. So say you took your scribbly and you did some art on it, you worked, or you colored it in, or you spent some time with it. And then now when you go to sleep, you're going to continue. You're going to ask for the teachings to continue in your dream time.
Okay.
And then you do that. And if you have a dream that you wake up with that you can remember, or the energy, or you have the feeling that you can do another doodly, then you do that. And then you just keep the process moving forward.
Okay, so you can keep these papers with you, or you recycle it when you're done?
Well, right. So, this is an energetic process. This is an interdimensional process. So I would start inviting the elementals to get involved. So if it feels appropriate to bring transformation in, I would burn it in fire with the intent of the transformation. Or if it's coming to peace on an emotional level with something, I would, maybe rip it up and turn it into pulp and let it go into the water somewhere, into a river or a stream. Moving water is best. Start utilizing the elemental beings to assist in the process, because they're here to help too. Telluric realm is really powerful, very, very powerful, that telluric realm.
Okay.
So when you include them in your process, it's definitely taking it home.
All right. Thank you.
That's
One more question. Yeah. And you said about the connection with your daughters, right? How you like the energy. I'm feeling like my younger one is like very sensitive. Her questions are also very profound. And I feel like she's here, with, as you were saying, a lot of young generation is coming to change. I feel it's like that. So I don't know how to help her. I'm sorry about this, because they're working on garage.
Oh, yeah. So the question is, how do you help her? Because she's very sensitive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you start facilitating experiences for her. You start facilitating, holding space for her to have experiences that show her sensitivity is a gift. Okay. It's because a lot of times our sensitivity, we end up becoming a victim of it, because we're empaths and we absorb people's energy. There's all sorts of dynamics with that. So you start helping facilitate experiences where she recognizes her sensitivities as a true gift, something that can actually serve her. So she can start cultivating a relationship of empowerment with her sensitivity. There's that kind of thing. And of course, encouraging her creativity in every way, shape, and form you can. these young ones, the big thing is about freedom to think outside the box, the freedom to be different, the freedom to, you know, be in your own wavelength. That's huge. That's huge. When I was a child, I remember that was repeated to me like a mantra, like, why can't you do it like everybody else does? You know, and I'm like, because I can't, you know, it was so deep inside. But that was like, I had a lot of criticism from my family like that because it was a lot for them to deal with. They didn't want to deal with the consequences of that. And I was just, you know, I'm like 5 years old saying, I can't, I wish I could. And then I go to bed thinking, why can't I be like everybody else? Why can't I follow the rules? You know, so, you know, just create those experiences so she can create a different relationship with it. That's a big piece. Yeah. Hopefully that's helpful. Yes. Thank you, darling. All right. Well, it looks like that's take us right up to the hour. Beautiful. So I invite everybody to check out that link in the teacher training for the 9 dimensions. It's a 12-week course. And we're going to be diving into the experientials. It's a cleansing process. It's a healing process. It's a transformation process to set you up to facilitate, to transmit the necessary encodements for you to help other people wake up in their own way of who they are as multidimensionals. It's not strictly Barbara Handclough's work, so just so you're aware of that, there's lots of other pieces too woven into this. These are all things that have worked, that I've been working with over the decades. It's funny, the word centuries wants to come out of my mouth, but consciously it was decades. All righty. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It's my honor and privilege to talk about these topics with you. And I really love that that we have a community here to share on this level. And if you have any questions or any thoughts, or if you're interested in getting involved in the Academy in some way, I encourage you to check out lightbodyacademy.com. We have a program called the Quantum Reality Shift that, like I said, helps work with those untangling those entanglements and peeling away blind spots and further empower you. So that's at Light Body Academy. All right, guys. Thank you again. We shall.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you so much. Lots of love from our side. And we are honored, and we can feel those energies, and we are going to miss you from the next week. Very powerful, power-packed sessions we had with you. So,
my pleasure.
So if all of you, if you want any further sessions, please reach out to her Academy website, or you can register at pssga.org to her advanced course, teacher training course, as she announced just now. Please register to that, and you will have lots of fun and lots of knowledge about that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, guys. Take care.